No, I just remembered that once fucking again, I forgot to think of a title, a rank before
a
we started.
designation.
Yeah.
Me too. I also don't have one. I think I got one. I think I'm good.
Oh, nice.
You got one? Let me know when you're ready.
I think I should be good.
Okay. Well, so much for the smooth intro. Let's just get right into this.
We can do another intro. It's fine.
I mean, I kind of like it being rough like this is,
Okay.
a little bit.
You got it.
Why not? Right?
Why the hell not?
This is Crew Expendable. I am Audi Moon Rover salesman Neal.
Definitely not what I was expecting you to say. and I am flight crew assistant Kenny.
Flight crew assistant Kenny, and this is the show where that's not how we do this. And we are just a couple of don't have it. Hold on. We are just a couple of
I got one if you don't.
Audi Lunar Quattros driving our way through the cargo bay of the Alien franchise.
That is literally what I was going to suggest if you weren't able to think of one.
So I'm not only the salesman of these things, I am also one of them. Because let's face it, the Audi Lunar Quattros sell themselves.
They certainly do. They sold one of them, I believe.
They sold at least one, yeah. Covenant doubles up on everything else, but not Audi Lunar Quattros. No way.
That's right. They only need one.
All right, flight attendant Kenny, what are we here today to talk about?
Flight attendant. We are here to talk about...
What was it?
We are here to... It was flight crew assistant.
Flight crew assistant, okay. Same thing.
Man, maybe we should just start the fucking recording over. This is a mess.
No, this is good. This is gold. This is podcast gold.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm having a great time. It's just, woo, you can tell we're having a weird one today.
This is what happens after an hour of technical difficulties.
That's right.
You just got to go with it, man.
That's right. We're going to have to. And I'm going to go with it right now by answering your question. Neal, what we are doing here today is we're discussing the approximately dozen or so short films that, well, not really short films. They're just shorts that were made to promote the film Alien Covenant.
Right, which we recently watched, and our episode covering that movie is out, as is our episode covering one of these short films, the Last Supper prologue and the prequel novel. There is so much Covenant content. We could do another week on this, but I'm going to go ahead and say right now, I'm not sure that we even fucking need to. I know there's deleted scenes, but let's play that one by ear.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
We could, but on the other hand, what you got to remember is that eventually we will. If we don't do it now, we're going to have to come back and do them later at some point or another.
Which I think I'd be fine with. I might be ready to move on from the Covenant era at this point.
Fair enough.
But we should dive into these shorts. So you said there's about a dozen. Give
or take, yeah.
Let's go through a list and make sure that we are talking the same amount of these things.
All right. I got my list right here. Well, the first one, of course, is Last Supper, but we already talked about that.
Last Supper we talked about on its own, because that's about the only of these prologues that actually matters.
The note I have literally says, we already did a whole dang episode on it.
Yes,
with
that's right.
3 exclamation points, and then I just skipped to the next one. Which, by the way, the next one is Meet Walter.
Hold on 1 second.
All right.
Alexa, shut the fuck up. All right, I'm back.
The second one is Meet Walter.
Uh-huh. Yep, got that one. Okay.
Then 3 through 7 are the 5 various crew messages, which we can probably discuss as one short, because 3 of them are like 20 seconds long.
They're extremely short. Yep.
And then the one after that is I've got The Crossing.
Yes.
And then if we want to discuss it, the Lunar Quattro.
Well, we have to at this point.
That's true. We've already mentioned it. This is the third time. And then after that, She Won't Go Quietly.
Right.
Phobos.
Yep.
Advent.
Uh-huh.
and Last Signs of Life is the last one I have
Sure.
on the list.
David's Laboratory, Last Signs of Life. Okay, so we've got these in the same order. That's good news because we didn't plan this at all. Seems like we used the same website for these.
We probably did. If it's the website that I sent you, yes.
100% it is. As always, we will put a link to this in the episode description so you can watch these short films for yourself if you want to.
Some of which you should. Some of them you can pass on, but
Yeah.
some of them I would say is definitely worth watching.
We will let you know which ones you should pass on and which ones you should definitely watch. We might disagree on that.
Probably.
Let's jump right into Meet Walter, right? This this is one that I know Jade talked about a little bit on our Covenant episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think she described it as like a perfume commercial almost.
She did, and she's not wrong. It certainly
wrong.
has that like style, you know.
It was giving me like major Westworld or like new iPhone vibes, like commercial vibes, you know.
Yep.
Basically it's just a commercial for the date for I was about to say the David.
Yeah, you were going to call him David. His name is Walter.
For the Walter, right?
Yep.
So we see like these people coming and constructing Walter, basically, like the chassis for his body, like the carbon tube, you know, structure of his body is under a blanket, and they pull this off and they put the head on and they insert a chip, and there's like this like hipstery indie music like playing in the background. That's what I'm going to call it. I don't think that's an accurate description. Like,
yeah, it's fine.
The kind of music you would expect to play as somebody is showing off a new cell phone in a commercial. It's that
exactly.
It's that kind of music. Yeah, and then like it cuts to like Walter alive, you know, and they say, "What is your name?" and he says, "Walter. We are Walter," right? And then it cuts to like the all new Walter, created to serve. Reserve yours at meetwalter.com.
That certainly is what happens, yeah.
Did you go to meetwalter.com?
I did not.
I did.
All right.
It forwards to 20thcenturystudios.com now. But
of course it does.
Back in the day, I used the Wayback Machine to check this out. Back in the day, it took you to a website where you could pre-order your own Walter, right?
Ooh.
Back in 2017 when this movie was coming out. Doesn't function anymore, but the fine print is there indicating that you will not actually be getting a Walter robot, but what you will be getting is targeted ads on other websites. Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, so this was their viral campaign, the Meet Walter viral campaign for Alien Covenant. Just outright says, hey, you're not getting a real robot, but you are going to get just plastered with advertisements for our products on other websites. So super fucking cool. Probably a lot of Audi advertisements popped up, things like that. You know?
Yeah, probably.
It's a short, right? It's like 2 minutes long or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see, you know, nice to see Michael Fassbender as Walter. I'll take all the Walter content I can get.
I mean, like, I'll admit, I don't really know if I have much of anything to say about this short. Yeah, mainly because nothing really fucking happens in it.
There's not much. There's a product launch video for the Android of the Walter robot, right? Set up to launch a viral campaign. Not a ton, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's like the only things I really have to say about it is I thought it was cool, like when they were piecing him together, like the two workers were like attaching the parts. They had like these weird, like hardened netting masks.
Yeah, like
that I thought looked pretty cool.
Almost like fencing masks or something.
Almost, yeah.
Right.
And then like after they finish putting him together, they like attach the head on. They put this chip into the top of his head that kind of like sinks in through the fake skin.
Yeah.
And then like after that, they like zip him up in like a vacuum seal container and then just leave him. And then when they come back, he's just like fully formed and like finished being built. And I was like, dang, that's pretty cool.
It is cool to see like the construction of the synthetic, right?
Yeah.
Not something we usually get to see them like ripped in half and shit like that, right?
But
So
I don't really have anything else to say about the short because, like I said, nothing really happens in it, so there's just not really much to say about it, honestly.
yeah, but you can see how the advertisement for the Walter is different than the way they advertise the David, right?
It
The David
certainly
8.
is.
They're definitely going for a gentler approach with this one. So
Yeah, like the whole marketing campaign for the David was look how humanoid and lifelike he is. Whereas
yes,
the one for Walter, they're like, look how explicitly not
yeah.
actually a person he is. Please
Check out
remember he's not actually alive.
check out his
Please.
robot insides. Look, we put him together. He's not human. He's the opposite. Yeah, they're very, very much like, hey, this is not another David. This is a Walter, an all new Walter that looks exactly like the David, right?
Exactly. That's
Just
right.
maybe a few years older because of, time.
Yeah.
But that's it. All right. So let's move on to the crew messages, right? We've got crew messages from Daniels, Orem, Rosenthal, Lope, and Tennessee.
Correct. And
Yes.
that's also the order I watched them and have my notes for them in.
And with the exception of Daniels and Tennessee's, they all sort of take place just in one, I don't know, like in one specific like broadcasting chair. And I guess the premise of these is everyone on board the Covenant got to send one message back home, right?
Yeah.
And so this is whatever message these 5 people sent. So let's start with the Daniels. She's sending a message home to her dad.
She is.
And she's just talking about like she's kind of sad. She's never going to see him again, and if something does happen to her on this mission, she wants her dad to know that she loves him. She's sort of like sitting in a corridor with like a handheld camera shooting this, right?
She is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did she say anything else important in this? Just kind of generally.
The only other things.
Yeah.
The only other things I have noted is that after she mentions it's for her dad, she explains to him a little bit about how excited she is that like her mission is to kind of like find a new planet and then terraform the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Like she's excited that she gets to terraform a planet.
Sure.
And like during that conversation, when talking about like, creating life on this planet and creating something out of nothing and all that, she has a couple of sentences that I don't remember exactly what she says because I didn't write them down, but there's a couple of sentences she says at one point that kind of implies she might want to have kids one day.
Sure. Yeah. Well, good thing Jacob's on the mission with her, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And
That'll go well.
I should say, you already know this, but for the listeners, this crew message and the other 4, like, so all 5 of them, the entire series, like, during the messages, they're like intercut with scenes from the movie of like people screaming and limbs getting ripped off and monsters running by, and like they have in these little tiny like flash like strobe like almost scenes from the actual movie of like very brief clips of like us seeing what will happen to that character in the future, like intercut along with these messages. And like I said, that happens in all 5 of them. So listener, while you're hearing us talk about these, just imagine those are happening while we're describing them.
Some of it is like, seems like new footage, like almost GoPro footage. They had cameras hooked on to the people as they're walking through their expeditions and stuff. I don't really remember it in the movie that way. So I think some of it might be alternate footage or extra footage. It is cool in any case.
Like, I'm pretty sure the characters all did have GoPros, and I think there were, like, in the actual final version of the movie, 1 or 2 brief shots seen from the perspective of a person's GoPro.
Right.
So what I'm guessing they did is they just hooked everyone up with it, had them film a whole bunch of stuff, and then only used a little bit of it, and so they probably just used some of those other takes for these instead.
That makes sense. It was cool to see in any case.
It was.
So that was Daniel's. Hers is pretty long. It's like a minute and a half or something like that. I've got Orem's next on the list. He's just sitting in a chair in like this broadcast room where Rosenthal and Lope will also be broadcasting from. Orem is reading some piece of paper he has written about the majesty of creation, right? It's only like 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah.
Did you get the impression that this is the speech that he kept wanting to read during the Last Supper short that he didn't get to read twice?
It's funny, like, while I was actually watching the short,
Yeah.
that never occurred to me, but then while we were sitting here talking about it, right when you were like, he was reading off of a sheet of paper, my brain suddenly went, holy shit, he was holding a piece of paper in the Last Supper.
Yes.
Is this the fucking speech he was gonna get? Then half a second after my brain thought that, you asked me that. My guess is, honestly, yeah, probably.
Yeah, 100%. He left that party and went down to send this message like back to his church or something on Earth before he went into hypersleep. Like, guaranteed.
Yeah, because that's another thing I should specify for the listeners. Like, what he says is it's him sitting in a chair and he has this very like smug look on his face.
The
and he's
Orem
reading
face.
off of a sheet of paper. Yeah, the Orem face, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's reading off a sheet of paper. And what he reads is, and I even quoted this and wrote it down.
Yeah.
The majesty of creation lies before us now, ours to discover. We shall behold wonders heretofore unimagined.
That's it.
That's it. That's all he says. This entire short is literally like 15 or 20 seconds long. That's it.
Dude finally got to make his fucking speech, though.
He finally did. And it was 2 sentences.
So fucking funny. Rosenthal is up next. She primarily just talks about sometimes being lonely up on the ship. We don't know who she's talking to. But
we don't.
It's somebody that she misses, and she tells them that she misses them.
That's pretty much all. Like, this one is also only like 15 seconds long. Like, all 3 of these middle ones, Orem, Rosenthal, and Lope, they're all like 20 seconds long.
Yeah.
And this Rosenthal one, though, how you mentioned, like, she only has enough time to talk about how she's like feeling lonely, like, while she's on the ship. And like, I was thinking about that, and on one hand I was like, that's a little bit of a weird character trait. Then I realized, no, actually it makes perfect sense, because I think she's the only person on the crew that isn't half of a couple.
Yeah, she's not coupled up.
Yeah, it would make sense that she's the one that's feeling lonely, because she's the only one that showed up without a partner.
We've also got I already dropped their names. Ludwig. What's his name? Ledward, yeah. Ledward,
Cole, and Anchor are the other
Anchor.
3,
yeah. So presumably 2 of them may be in a couple. Maybe they're all on a throuple, and then Rosenthal's just on her own.
Could be. Who knows?
But yeah, because I think they did specify that everybody was coupled up for the most part. So she is sort of the odd one out. I guess the security team in general kind of is. Right.
Yeah, if you recall, they said in the prequel novel that, like, Lope even tells her at one point that unlike the rest of the crew, the security team is not required to be partnered up. That
makes sense. Okay. Another thing that references the novel is we get a brief shot in her message of a drop, like a ship drop or a jump or something. Everybody's strapped into like a landing ship, which. Remember, she had troubles with jumps.
She certainly did.
She even says, like, we only got to make one just down to the planet, and then that's it. So, like, I just thought that was a nice touch, a nice little reference. And I'm wondering if they pulled that for the book, or if Alan Dean Foster saw this material and was like, hey, I'm going to add that in as a character trait for Rosenthal. Because I don't really remember her sweating it too much in the movie. We don't really see how they react to the landing process.
We definitely don't, although I will say that this did come out. Like, it came out before the movie, but the movie came out about 6 months before the prequel novel did. Yeah. So this definitely had already been out for several months by the time the movie, or by the time the book was released. But, like, who knows how long or how much of a lag time between when the book was finished and when it came out, though. Who knows?
Yeah, it could have been in a character Bible or something too. Could have been in something cut from a screenplay. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, next up we have Lope, who literally just says that he doesn't think a 6-person squad would be enough for this mission, but they're going to try to keep these people safe anyway. Short and to the point, just like Lope. That was it. That's the whole thing. I think we get a shot of somebody shooting a gun, like, that doesn't look like an alien gun in space, and then we get like some more action shots in there of people shooting guns, and that's it. So
Yeah, like his isn't really very like personal. It's very like formal and clipped and like by the book. The only other thing of note that I really picked up is that this short, the fourth one of the 5,
yes,
this is the one where we find out that they are recording these immediately before going into hypersleep.
okay,
None of the other characters has said that yet. Lope is the only one that mentions it, and right now, at near the end of the series, is when we finally figure out the context for why these videos even exist.
This is like right before everyone's going to bed. Okay.
Yeah.
Are they? He's not recording from his pod, is he? Like that's not what they're all sitting in.
No, he's in the hallway like everyone else is.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So this is their last chance to send a message. So they're just knocking it out.
Correct. Yeah.
So he mentions a 6-person security details. So that's he and Hallett and Rosenthal and Ledward, Anker and Cole. Is that the last one?
Those are the 6 members of the security squad.
That's the entire security squad. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Finally getting those names memorized just in time to move on from this nonsense.
Correct.
Last but certainly not least, we've got Tennessee, who's in his quarters recording his message, and he starts off by saying, "I told you I'd get out of Lichburg, but I bet this isn't what you imagined." We find out he is sending this message to his little brother and wants to have one more drink with his little bro before he goes into hypersleep, because when he wakes up, it'll no longer be his little brother, it'll be his older brother, right? And he's looking forward to seeing how much hair he lost and how much weight he gained, and of course see his brother's kids grow up. I guess it's a statement on like time dilation, or is that just like suspended animation? Like,
yeah, I think hypersleep puts you in a kind of like, I think it puts you in some kind of like suspended animation type state.
Sure.
They never really specify it outright, but like it's assumed, considering that like, there's a 57-year gap between 1 and 2, and Ripley's only like a couple of years older. So presumably there is some kind of vague time dilation like type thing happening. Who knows?
But they're doing all of this space travel, and there's never any mention of time dilation. And like when we get there, it's only going to be 2 years for us, but 50 years have happened on, that kind of typical stuff.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that the Alien franchise has never really dealt with that. I'm guessing we don't really know if people are traveling at the speed of light, do we, in this? Like people could be just traveling at real time.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not a physicist, so if there are any physicists out there who want to talk about how this applies to the Alien universe, email us. We'll get you on the show.
That's right.
mother@crewexpendable.net.
mother@crewexpendable.net. I don't know if we've ever actually plugged that on the show before, so we're doing it now.
Yeah.
I actually do have a couple of things to say about this one.
I do too. Please. You first.
All right. I had originally written in my notes at this point, I assume he means Lynchburg, Tennessee, hence his nickname. And also, Lynchburg, Tennessee is the home of the Jack Daniels distillery, tying it back into the events of Last Supper.
Sure, and the liquor he pulled out in this, a bottle of Jack Daniels.
And then I got curious because I was like, oh, that's probably why he has the nickname Tennessee. So I looked it up because I was like curious as to what his real first name is.
Yeah.
And according to Xenopedia, I discovered that he's not from Tennessee. The Lynchburg he's referring to is the one in Virginia, not the one in Tennessee.
Okay, all right.
I don't know where they ever said that, and like the the Xenopedia article isn't like cited on that sentence, so I don't know where they got that information from, but apparently he's not from Tennessee, and the article literally just says his name is Tennessee Ferris. So apparently Tennessee, according to the internet, is his real legal birth first name.
Okay. Well, maybe the Alien Covenant is in continuity with the Zombieland movies.
Maybe.
Right. Everyone's just named after where they're from or where they're going.
The one other thing I had to say about that section of this video is that
except Bill Murray.
Correct, except Bill Murray, yes. But the one other thing I had to say about this part of the Tennessee video is that I looked up some, like, I found the Wikipedia page for Lynchburg, Virginia, and I was looking through some of the famous people that were, from that city. And there were a whole bunch of, like, people that I didn't like and didn't want to mention or didn't want to bring up.
Yeah.
But I will say, who is from Lynchburg, Virginia, that you and I are both extremely familiar with?
Oh, boy. Who?
Skeet Ulrich.
Skeet Ulrich. Hell yes.
Yeah. Billy Loomis himself is from the same place that Tennessee is.
Billy fucking Loomis from Scream 1. From Scream 1 and...
Scream 5.
And Riverdale. He's in Riverdale also. He's Jughead's dad. Wait, I'm not a Riverdale guy.
I was just about to say, wait a minute, I thought Jughead's dad died, and then I remembered, no, that was Luke Perry, who was Archie's dad that died. That's right, yeah.
R.I.P. Luke Perry. That's sad.
But yeah, like I said, Skeet Ulrich is also from the same town that Tennessee is from, which I just thought was fun.
Should have cast Skeet Ulrich in this role. Danny McBride was good, but could you imagine Skeet Ulrich in here? Like,
that would be cool, I will admit.
with his weird small jaw.
That's right.
Right.
But yeah, the other thing that he mentions in this video is that he admits to his little brother that he has been arrested and gotten in trouble with the law multiple times, which is a big deal because he lied by omission about that on his application to become the pilot.
Sure.
So Wayland Yutani didn't even know this, and he's like,
too late to fire me now, right?
And he said that he's been arrested 3 times, stole a vehicle, and punched a police horse in the mouth on St. Patrick's Day.
Should have punched the cop, am I right?
Technically, he did punch a cop, so...
True, that is true. Yeah, he's like, Wayland Yutani, I know you're watching this, time to come clean, right? Like...
Yeah.
I did all these horrible things, and he still gave me the keys to the most expensive spaceship ever built.
Yeah, and he frames it as he's like, yeah, like you said, he's like, since I know Wayland Yutani is watching this, it's time for me to come clean and let you guys know. But let's be real, there's no way that Wayland Yutani didn't already know that he did that stuff.
Right, they knew. They fucking knew.
They certainly fucking knew, for sure.
Of course they knew.
But yeah, it's this is just yet again, just another part of the Covenant segment of the franchise that just adds more characterization and fleshes out the character of Tennessee even more. Like Jade mentioned in our Covenant episode that she's he's the best character in the movie, and here's the thing, he is.
He's the best character in the movie. Him, Walter, and Daniels, and that's it, right?
And they're really,
David's a really objectively good character, but you don't want to you don't like him,
True, but what's more relevant to the specific point I'm trying to make is that those 3 characters of Walter, Daniels, and Tennessee, they get both the most characterization, and they're really the only characters that get any characterization, because even in these shorts, you'll have you'll do this series where it's you've got Tennessee gets one and Rosenthal gets one.
Right.
Tennessee, a character that in the movie got more characterization than Rosenthal did. In the shorts, his is a minute and a half long and gets a whole bunch of stuff. And Rosenthal, the character who didn't get any in the movie, also doesn't get any in the short. It's you'd think they would take this opportunity to flesh out the character some more, but they're nah, we'll just keep her exactly the same as she already is.
They didn't have anything to flesh them out with, is the thing.
Exactly.
They just made it Alan Dean Foster's problem for the Covenant Origins book.
And he did his best.
He did. All right. Do you want to move on to The Crossing?
Yes.
So The Crossing is actually an extended scene of what happened in the movie when David is talking to Walter, and we're flashing back to David piloting the Juggernaut in and dropping the files and everything.
Mm-hmm.
This was in the film. They truncated it, they shortened it to what we saw in the movie, and then released this as a promotional short instead. This is narrated by David. It is chronicling Shaw and David like flying the engineer Juggernaut to the engineer planet. So we get a lot of Nomi Rapace in this as Shaw, like doing stuff, right?
And it's new footage
It's
too.
new
It's not even
footage.
like stuff we saw from Prometheus or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they brought her back to film new stuff for this.
Yes, her hair is longer. You can tell like
Yeah.
they've been on in space or on. I couldn't tell if they, because the end of Prometheus implies that they sort of launched the Juggernaut right away. This seemed to think like Elizabeth repaired me. We figured out how to navigate their ship. So like I don't know if they were like on LV-223 for a while before they took off. You know?
Yeah, like the implication is that at the end of Prometheus, we see her scooping up the head and then like heading towards the ship, and then we see the ship pull out and rise away,
Yeah.
or rise out and fly away, I should say. And
Yep.
like the way they edited it, it's like she shows up to the ship and then they leave, but like this is revealing that actually right there's like a brief time jump of at least probably like a week or so
Yeah.
that we just don't see that they removed from the movie. So
Yeah, and we see her putting David's head back on his body, right? And he like draws a nice picture of her, you know, and shows it to
which
her.
was very cute.
It's so fucking funny. And then he's just like, we talked, you know, it's like we learned how their navigation systems and where they lived. And then we see Shaw getting into one of the sleep pods, and she's like, do you think they'll be kind or something like that, or how do you think they'll be? And he's like, hopefully no worse than we are, right? Something along those lines. And he puts her into hypersleep, and then suddenly David's like, and then I was alone.
And yeah, like that conversation about like, you know, where they're going, what their home world is going to be like, which by the way, this short explicitly points out that Planet 4, you know, the planet they end up on in Covenant, like David explicitly refers to that as their home world.
Yes, he does.
But like, you know, they're having this conversation about like where it is and how long it's going to take them to get there and all that. And like this conversation between Shaw and David is just like a voiceover while other scenes are happening.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to the scene of David laying Shaw down in the hypersleep chamber, and that's when we find out that they had been having this conversation while he was prepping her to go in the hypersleep chamber.
Yes.
And we just heard it over the other events. But yeah, they were having that conversation like right before he puts her under.
Right.
And then like, you know, she's like, oh, okay, great. You know, after he says, you know, he describes her as being very kind, and she seems to be a little touched by that. And then he hits the button and she just goes into sleep, you know, and he's like, well, I'm alone now.
Yeah, he says, what does he say? He says he's never had someone be so compassionate towards him, right?
Yeah.
So this is
something like that anyway.
It's interesting to me because then suddenly he's alone on the ship for some undisclosed period of time, and by the time they get to Planet 4, he's ready to drop the vials, right? Ready to wipe this species out because he's been spending all that time learning about them, he says, like learning about their culture or whatever, like from records on the ship and stuff like that. And he becomes disgusted by them. Seems like dude goes bad when people aren't around for him, right? Like,
yes,
I did kind of like really believe the kindness between he and Shaw in that scene, but then the second he was on his own and he didn't have that human being around to like gauge his, you know, regulate his emotions off of, he just went kind of fucking nuts, right? I like this. Obviously, I'm thrilled that we got to see a little bit more Shaw. It still hurts, it stings, like what her fate would end up being, but I'm glad that she's there. And I really, really would have liked to see this as part of the film itself.
Yeah, it would have been nice, like you said, like it would have been cool to at least acknowledge in the movie. I don't want to say acknowledge that Shaw existed prior to when this movie happened, because like Shaw does appear like, you know, as a corpse and in pictures and in drawings and stuff.
And David talks
like
about her at her grave and everything to Walter.
But like having this scene in the movie where we see her still alive and up and moving around, and like I mentioned, like, you know, it's footage that is newly recorded
Yes.
for this movie. Like, it would have been nice to have that little bit of connective tissue because, like, at the end of the day, I like Shaw more than I like Daniels, so I would have rather have Shaw be in this movie.
Right.
So, like, having her in the movie in some capacity, I would have preferred over what it is we ended up getting. I don't know if I said that in a way that made
It makes
sense,
sense.
but
I
like,
got what you're
okay,
saying.
cool. All right, good.
I so the only thing I can think of the reason they took it out is because this like we were talking about this on the Covenant episode. Jade pointed out that the main character of these movies is David. It's not Shaw. It's not Daniels. It's David. David's the main
Yeah.
character of Covenant, even though we don't start with him. David ends up being the main character of Prometheus, even though like it feels like it's Shaw. This would have been the moment that would have cemented if we were watching. If I was sitting down watching Alien Covenant for the first time, and I actually see David interacting with the protagonist from the first movie, like all of the scenes that they shared, and then cutting to what we see has happened to Shaw in Covenant itself, her body in the lab and everything, like that would have been a strong signifier of no, this is completely David's movie now. And
Yeah.
what that would have done was then sort of make me detach a little bit from Daniels and Tennessee and the other human survivors, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, oh, this isn't their story. This is, at this point, this is David's story. So maybe by reducing some of that, it kept us on the hook, kept the viewer on the hook in terms of like rooting for Daniels and Lope and the other humans who were alive at that point, and Walter, of course.
Of course.
Versus, so maybe that's the reason that they cut it. I don't know, but I still would have liked to see it. I want to see more Shaw all day long.
Agreed.
You know,
Agreed. Hard agree.
and of course the surprise reveal that Captain Yannick is still alive would have been cool. But
I would have been okay with that too. Yes.
we didn't get that.
Yeah. Too bad.
Crossing is good and worth watching.
All right. Let me ask you right now.
Sure.
Are you willing to talk about the next short or not?
We have to, right?
I mean, even if only very briefly, and like, if you don't want to talk about it, I can just take like 15 seconds to one sentence it, and then we move on if you'd rather.
Let's start there.
Okay. So, listeners, the next short is, the official title is Alien Covenant X Audi Lunar Quattro, and it is literally a product placement ad for the little 6-wheel rover lunar guy that has like a 2-second scene in the movie. That is the whole thing. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's a fucking commercial. A real piece of tech that was used in Alien Covenant. Audi, what are you doing? What are you doing, Audi? Why? All right, we should say like so the point of this short is the little rover gets activated in the cargo bay of presumably the Covenant, because this is all Covenant tie-in media, right?
Yeah, it's on the Covenant, yes.
Detecting some unknown life form, right? It's a xenomorph. We see xenomorph like drooling on it. We see it in the rafters at the end of the short, but like the thing doesn't actually find the xenomorph. Instead, some crew guy comes out and says, "What are you doing, little rover dude? Come with me." And the rover follows the dude, and they're like, the Audi Lunar Quattro, fucking sick and tight, bro, right? What?
I will butt in real quick to say that it's not a crew member. That is Cole.
Oh, it is Cole. Okay.
That is Cole.
So it's literally Cole. Okay, so this is literally something that happened. Presumably, this is a real scene that would have been in the movie after they got back on the ship, right? After everyone's back on the ship.
Well, by the time they get back on the ship and that there is a xenomorph running around on the ship,
right. Cole's dead.
Cole's already dead by that point.
So it doesn't make any fucking sense at all. So, all right, here's my issue. Now, I hate commercials, and this, I'm not taking like some kind of like principled stance against advertising with this. I just fucking hate product placement and commercials and shit like that. It always rubs me the wrong way. And especially in an instance like this, where I have to buy the reality like that this is supposed to be a good thing, that the Audi Lunar Quattro, that Audi's developed this moon lander that is part of the Covenant mission, and it's like, oh, it's so cool. It's like making the Covenant mission real. Hey, Audi, the Covenant mission was a fucking failure. Right? Like it was a poorly planned and poorly executed mission. You really want your name on this thing? Like, be real. And let's also just take into consideration the world that this is happening in, where Earth is fucked. As we learned in the Alien Covenant Origins novel, the only reason colonization is happening is because it's happening out of a necessity, and finally because the corporations can profit off of it. So this is already like this entire endeavor is like a fucking in universe, a Wayland Yutani like press, just a way to fucking make money. And you're gonna add some like Audi like tech, like I don't know, dude. I don't know, Audi. Maybe you don't want your name associated with this failed colonization for profit mission by an evil mega corporation who has like destroyed planet Earth and now is like going out into space to do the exact same thing and hiring security officers who immediately just start dropping cigarette butts all over what's supposed to be our new fucking home. I'm sorry. I hate it. I hate it. It's fucking stupid. Stupid, and I hate it. Like, I wrestle with product placement shit in like another film franchise that I'm a huge fan of, the James Bond series, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much fucking product placement in those movies, and like it becomes like a part of like the promotion for the film is the stuff that James Bond wears and drives and whatever else, like
drinks, yeah,
and drinks and everything. And like I have like not been tempted to like go out and buy like an Omega watch because of fucking Daniel Craig. So like I just hate this shit, dude. I just hate it. This is dumb. This is so dumb. It doesn't even make sense in the context of the movie. But like even as an advertisement, like get out of here, Audi. I don't fucking know. Sorry. Not an eloquent rant, but I was
that's fine.
Annoyed.
I mean, you had mentioned earlier that there was something that was going to be in this episode that you wanted to go off about. And once you started to, I was like, oh, here it is. All right, this is the one.
This is it. Yeah, this is so... and it takes me out of the world of the movie because now I'm thinking about the reality of like, oh yeah, in the future, when we are absolutely fucked, we're going to be having Audi running commercials like this to be like, see, we're doing something good for humanity. Like, well, what are you doing for us right now, though? You know? I don't know, man.
I also had one or two things to say about this, but I'm not turning on rant mode like you just did. The only two things I had to say about this were, one, it was cool to actually see Cole in one of these. I think this is the only short in the entire series that he appears in, other than Last Supper where everyone appears. I think this is the only one he's in.
I think you're right about that, yeah.
So it's cool that they like remembered this character existed and decided to bring, of all people, him into this one.
Right.
The other thing that I had to say about this, which is something that did strike me as kind of weird, and the more I thought about it, the funnier and like dumber it got, is that, like you said, the whole premise is that the Quattro, like the lander hears like a sound and then it activates to go like drive around and figure out what the sound was.
Yeah.
But like it keeps on cutting to like its little computer display where it has like itself pointed on a little like radar map, and then it had like a red dot that says like unidentified life form, and it's driving closer to the dot, and it keeps on like trying to invent this tension of like cutting back to the radar thing where like we see the two dots getting closer and closer to each other.
Yeah.
And then when it finally gets to where this unidentified life form is, turns out it's just Cole.
It's just Cole.
And the lunar guy figures this out when it, points the camera up at him and scans his face. And then the little facial recognition thing pops up and it says like Private Cole next to him on like the camera screen or whatever. But like, here's what I want to know. Okay. We later on at the very, very last shot is like, the two of them, like Cole and the lander, are walking away, and then it pans over to like some darkness, and then a protomorph's head comes out and snarls, and then it cuts to black. So that's obviously like the unidentified life form that it picked up. But like when it was following the unidentified life form dot, it just found Cole and then scanned him. And then when it scanned him, like his information came up, which indicated that this lander like has Cole's like bio signs like
I guess.
saved to be able to like scan him and track him and know where he is. But if it had that info on him, then why was it registering him as unidentified life form?
Because it's an incompetent piece of technology.
Like, why did it not know who it was until after it got there and scanned him? Like, if it already had his bio signs, it should have been able to figure out who it was the moment it picked up the signal, you know?
Should have. But it's a failure of a piece of technology. Apparently, this moon rover was supposed to be on a SpaceX mission, a flight to the moon in October 2021. That just didn't happen, and no further announcements on the launch have been made. So, I don't know. Sorry, little buddy. I don't think you're going anywhere anytime soon.
I will say, though, for the listeners, as you may have been able to figure out by us, you know, having the discussion earlier, this short is not in continuity with the movie and is officially considered non-canon. And, well, yeah, you're right, it can't be. And the reason I bring that up is because the next short we're about to talk about is also explicitly non-canon to the movie.
This one also makes me angry. These two are like they're like the McDonald's Batman Returns tie-in commercials, right? We're like, okay, so there's Batman and he's got the Batmobile and he's driving through McDonald's and like, but it didn't actually happen in the movie, right? Like that's not canon. Batman didn't go get a Happy Meal in Batman Returns. And this next one just fucking bewilders me. It's cool, but it's like a fucking bait and switch, right?
Yeah.
It's called She Won't Go Quietly. Made me feel pranked. It's just Daniels on the Covenant, like hanging out, asking Mother questions. How long have we been traveling? How long until we get there? Is the moon really made of cheese, etc., right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like she's hanging out playing cards with Tennessee and I think Hallett, and I'm not sure who the other person is.
It was Tennessee and Ferris and a third person, and I couldn't tell who the third person was, but according to the internet, it was Ledward.
Ledward, okay. So Ledward got something to do too. All right. And they're just like playing cards, and then they like get like an alert, right? There's an unknown life form on board or whatever, right? So then it cuts to like just Daniel's in full on panic mode, running down hallways, telling Mother to seal off doors, grabbing weapons, asking if there's more ammo on board, etc., just like generally freaking out, right? And then like the final shot, she's like, Mother, where is the organism? She's like walking down a hallway and Mother's like, it is 4 meters above you. And she like starts to pan up into this opening above, and we see like a little bit of a xenomorph tail like swing down, and then it cuts. And
she aims up like a vertical hallway and like points her gun up there just as we see something start to drop down from the shadows, and then it just cuts out like hard cut to black right then and there.
And it's like Alien Covenant, watch it soon, right?
Yeah.
It's not even that's not even part of the fucking movie. It's not part of the movie. Like, it almost could have been part of the movie. Like, if they didn't have the scene where she's playing cards with Ferris in particular, right? Like, you almost could have believed that this was at some point in the future. Maybe she had woken up. Maybe the whole David situation had been dealt with, and her and like everyone's okay, and they're just on the ship, you know, still.
Here's the thing, because remember, there's a scene of her playing poker with those 3 other people.
Yeah.
And in the canon of the movie, by the time she's back on the ship, because like the whole thing is that she's getting attacked by a protomorph.
Right.
And like the only time there's ever a protomorph on the ship is when in the movie Ferris and Ledward are already dead.
Right.
But like literally all they had to do was, rather than her playing poker with them, it could have just been like her playing solitaire or her only playing poker with Tennessee.
Yeah.
Because remember, when they came back onto the ship before before Lope's bloodburster bursted,
right,
there was a gap there of several hours, because like they get back to the ship and then Lope doesn't die until like the next morning,
something like that. Yeah, they had time, Yeah, they
Yeah.
absolutely had time.
Yeah, there
Like,
there was a brief gap of time there where this scene could have taken place, or
right.
like, some version of it, because like we see in the movie how and when she discovers that there's a protomorph on board,
Yeah.
and it's not the way this short depicts it, but that could simply be explained away as a matter of like this short is just depicting it differently because it only has like 2 minutes to work with or whatever, you
So
know?
so
So they're just
my
telling like a truncated version of the story rather than telling a completely different other story, you know?
right. So my thinking was this could have been in the future. This could have been David's done some shit on the ship. He's had those embryos. He might have infected a few people. There might have been one successful impregnation, but maybe somehow Daniels got out of her pod, or got rid of
Woken up or whatever.
David somehow, blasted him out the
Yeah.
airlock. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah,
Uh,
who knows?
Suddenly, she's the only one conscious and awake on the ship. She's the only survivor. Maybe Tennessee's still asleep. Maybe they're sleeping in shifts or something. I don't know. When suddenly this xenomorph attack happens from this impregnated colonist that she didn't even have any idea it had happened, because she didn't know about the embryos.
Yeah,
And what
exactly.
we're getting here is some kind of aftermath. And the reason they probably put Ferris and Ledward or whoever in this is so that you wouldn't think that this was happening after the events of the movie, right?
Yeah.
But instead,
Yeah.
it's just a worse version of what the movie gave us, right? Like, out of continuity. I don't
Yeah.
even understand the point. Like, was there like a scene at the end where they're like the xenomorph drops down and it's like drinking a Slurpee, and this was like another commercial like product tie-in or something? I don't know, dude.
The one thing, like, I generally agree with you in the sense of it's like, why even bother making something? Why even bother making a short that advertises the movie if it literally doesn't fit within the context of the movie?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why they would do that. But the one thing I will say that I did like about this video
Yeah.
is that I thought the editing on it was really good. Like, I liked the opening montage of just Daniels in these various situations doing different things, and each one of
Yes.
them she's like, "Mother, I have a question. Mother, I'm asking you a question." Like, I thought that was really cool.
Right.
And then near the end, like when she's like frantic grabbing the weapons, trying to find the ammo, trying to find the medical equipment, things like that,
Yeah.
like it was edited together in this really like glitchy jumpy way where they like, like how that scene in Fight Club with Edward Norton where like they took like one of the scenes with Edward Norton where they like took frames out of the video, so
Right.
it kind of like unnaturally jumps around.
Yeah.
Like they did that with this too, and I thought that looked really cool. And like honestly, what it reminded me of is like those old like jump scare screamer videos from
Okay.
back in the day, if you remember those,
Kind of. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
like they're the ones where it's just like a flash animation of just like a blank screen or an empty room or
Uh-huh.
whatever, and they're like, we're gonna play some really quiet sound and have some super tiny picture appear in the background, so turn your sound way up and get real close to the screen to find it. And all of a sudden there'll just be like a big huge ghost face that pops
Sure.
up and screams really loud. Like the editing in those kinds of videos, that's what this one reminded me of. Like the rest of the video I could take or leave, but
Right.
I thought the editing on it was really cool and interesting and fun to watch. But like I said, everything else about it I could take it or leave it.
Feels like a missed opportunity to do like a promotion with like the Amazon Alexa or like the Google Home, where like call it Mother, right?
Yeah.
In honor of, you can ask Mother questions through your smart device. But it did feel like it felt like a commercial that they forgot what they were advertising. I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
It's fun. Go ahead and watch it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, it doesn't fucking matter. But
Sure.
you know what does matter? The final three shorts here, which are all they really add a whole lot of stuff to this movie, don't they?
Boy, do they. Yes. So, Phobos is the next one on our list. This is this is one that Jade talked about in our Covenant episode. This is the one where crew members are undergoing like a stress and fear test, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to let you lead the conversation on this, because I think that Jade honestly summarized it pretty darn well in the Covenant episode. But if you want to run through it, please go for it.
Well, I mean, like you said, they're brought to Phobos to, like, be administered some various tests to see, like, how they handle, like, the things that scare them, or like
Yes.
whatever stuff they might, like, be unnerved or perturbed by while they're out on the field doing
Right.
whatever. And
It's Hallett, Rosenthal, Tennessee, Daniels, and for some reason Walter. Those are the ones we see get tested.
well,
and Orem.
And Lope is there too.
Lope is there too. Okay, and Orem is also there.
Yes, and I mean, since Jade already went over the gist of what happens in this one, I'll just hit more like specific points that I did or didn't like.
Yeah.
When they have this like AI questioner, like the opening scene of the short is them like selecting what voice they want the AI interrogator to use.
Yeah.
And so it's asking them all these questions and like, how does getting on the Alpha team make you feel?
Right.
What would you say are your best qualities?
Well, they say they're like finalists for the Alpha team, right? Like this is how they're being selected, which creates a continuity error with maybe Alien Covenant Origins, but whatever.
It's fine.
It doesn't matter.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's like minor enough where it's like there's a way you could figure out how to hand wave and explain it away. But like, honestly, it's minor enough that who really cares, whatever.
Yeah.
But the last question that the AI asks them is what kind of stuff scares them? And then they like are forced to admit the things that scare them. And like everyone starts reacting in their own way. Walter, of course, is fully unfazed because he doesn't experience emotions.
Yes.
Daniels and Lope are generally fine for the most part, and Orem doesn't get scared of things. Every time something would normally scare him or stress him out, he just gets angry instead.
Or exhilarated, right? That's the other term he uses, or exhilaration.
Everyone else is just varying levels of uncomfortable when like the AI interrogator starts like asking him the types of things.
Orem is such a fucking dork, dude. Orem is like, he's like that kid in like middle school who's like, actually, I can go Super Saiyan if I focus my chi hard enough. It's such a fucking dork. I don't know, dude. He's just giving me like geek vibes, like crazy.
There's a very brief shot of when the interrogator is talking to Tennessee.
Orem carried the most folded chairs at once after Sunday school.
He certainly did. He's trying his hardest to make himself look cool, and he's trying so hard that everyone else is like, look at that loser.
I'm sorry, I have to tell this story. I was at a Vietnamese restaurant years ago. You ever have Vietnamese food?
I have, yes.
There was this table, like these three dudes. Like there was clearly the kid who like thought he was like the cool guy who like brought his friends here, Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they get some kind of appetizer, and it comes with like the hot peppers. And I don't know if you've had the hot peppers, like that go on like Vietnamese sandwiches and stuff. They're fucking hot. Right.
Yeah, I have not had them because I get really bad like indigestion and acid reflux, so I can't really eat spicy food.
Yeah, I don't fuck with super hot peppers either. I have had these, and I can they are too hot for me. So fair. This kid is like, this guy, I'm gonna keep calling him kid. Was like, his friends are like, I dare you to eat those peppers. He's like, yeah, I'll eat one. I don't care. Like they're not that bad. So he picks one up and he eats one and he chews it, and he's like, see, it's like not that bad. I keep fucking watching. His two friends start just like talking and making jokes. And I see this guy who ate the pepper, who thought he was so cool and tough, like his face turns red. But he's like sitting there trying to be calm and cool, like it's not bothering him. And he just like casually picks up his water and takes a sip and puts it back down. And you can just tell how fucking uncomfortable like his mouth is on fucking fire. Right. Mm-hmm. And his friends are just joking back and forth and making jokes. And he's just like sitting there like tortured, drinking more water. He cannot let his friends know that he actually couldn't handle the hot pepper because he was so confident and cool. Like, yeah, man, this is no big deal. I'm going to eat this pepper. That kid grew up to be Orem in this fucking movie. It's
correct.
Yeah. God damn it. I fucking hate him. I hate Orem so much.
See, what's great too is I don't know if I actually mentioned this on the Covenant episode or not, but like the first scene where we first see Orem when he's like finding out he has to like, become the new captain,
Yeah.
and he has to like step up and like, make sure, and all like, make sure he's going to do a good job and all that. Like they were really framing him as like a good, like heroic, sympathetic character.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. This character is like neat. And then literally the second scene is him just big dicking around and like ordering people to do stuff or to not do stuff just because he didn't like it. And I was like, oh, okay, so this character is actually extremely unsympathetic.
Everything else he did in that movie and everything that they've shown of him in the promotional shorts, just Orem sucks. Anyway, I'm sorry to derail us. Please continue. Shout out to that kid who can't handle his peppers.
That's right. Whatever your name was.
I know you're listening.
You figured out how to handle them.
Right in, mother@crewexpendable.net. Let us know how you're doing.
But yeah, like I said, the AI is like asking all these people how they feel and what scares them and all that. And like while this is happening, it cuts to like the worker inside the booth that's like manning the computer. Yeah. And like while Tennessee's getting interviewed, we have like a brief shot of like the computer she's operating on. Uh-huh. And it shows the crew member at the top and then has like a big, huge, long list of a whole bunch of like phobias and like with like 2 rows or 2 columns of buttons next to them, one of them for probable and one of them for confirmed. And like they showed this scene, they showed that screen a couple of different times over the course of the video. Yeah. And each time you could see some more phobias. And let's see,
a whole bunch of them.
Over the course of the short, we see like 13 or 14 different phobias that are listed there. And I wrote all of them down, but then after I did, I was all like, you know what? I don't actually need to go through that list of all of them.
Yeah,
it's
we don't
fine.
need to read that. It's fine.
But I will say, though, that Tennessee's confirmed phobias are pyrophobia and parasitophobia.
Okay, yeah.
And later on, we get a confirmed fear for Lope, which is trypophobia. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
Trypophobia is clusters of small circles close together.
Oh shit, kind of like the little mushroom things that Hallett ends up inhaling.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah,
that's kind of wild. Jesus. And then Tennessee being like on comms with Ferris as the parasite is busting out of yeah, that's kind of cool.
And then later on, if you recall, when the ship explodes, Ferris is the one that walks out of the wreckage of the ship on fire and then burns to death.
You're absolutely correct. Fuck, dude. Yeah.
Right. But after that, they start doing some word association, and they're just like listing off all these words, and then it cuts to like the various crew members, and we see like the answers they give. And wouldn't you know it, Orem gives God as his answer multiple times.
Yes, for like good and bad, right?
Yeah.
It's fucking nerd.
But whereas at one point, the AI asks Daniel's mother, and her response, she just like looks up at the interrogator and goes, "Bitch," which I thought was really funny.
What? It's fucked up, Daniel.
and then after that, because by this point they're already fully strapped into the table, and so they have to like look up at this like viewfinder looking machine that like projects these videos directly into their eyes, and it's like a series of videos that get like, we don't know exactly what they are, we don't really see them, and when we do start to see them, they're montaged and edited together so quick that like the shots are too fast for me to have been able to tell what they were.
Yeah.
But it's clear that it's like a series of image and videos that are like more and more and more distressing and uncomfortable as they go on.
Yeah,
and
dude.
Like, Tennessee starts freaking the fuck out. Rosenthal literally, like, while she's strapped in the table, like, literally starts crying while she's on the table.
Yeah.
And, like, Orem just gets more visibly angry and upset as things go on. And, of course, Walter's fully unfazed by all of it.
I liked that, the way so when Daniels is reacting, she's just like, I have work to do. Can I just I did this thing. Can I just go and do my work? It's
Yeah.
it's interesting because like on the one hand you're like, oh, she's so driven and wants to get her shit done, but on the other hand you're like, or is she just doing this because she's really uncomfortable and wants to get out of this test, right?
It could be.
Like you could read it either way. Versus like Tennessee, who's just straight up like, oh shit, on a scale of 1 to 10, that shit was a 10. That shit's fucked up. Like he's just like super in touch and admitting like exactly how he's feeling about everything. No like mask of ego or anything like that, you know.
The AI explicitly says, do not look away for longer than a certain period of time, because like they're reading like the things inside the, like some kind of data from inside their eyeballs. And like Tennessee, after a while, like it's like one video where you see like a worm burrowing out from some skin. He visibly cringes and looks away and like audibly goes, "Oh, fuck you."
Yeah.
Which really made me laugh.
It's good. And then the other thing I was thinking about in this is that Walter, it makes sense that they made Walter take this test because they want to make sure Walter's not another David, you know?
Yeah.
Like they are double checking just to make sure he's not going to have any kind of weird emotional reactions the way that like
on top of that, even for like a more practical reasoning, they would probably want a control to compare everyone else against,
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
But also, I don't know if that's pretty much the end of the video is like, like all of them, like, after they're shown these images, they're like asked on a rating of 1 to 10 where to rank them. And Tennessee, of course, is a 10. Rosenthal's a 10. Yeah. Walter is like, I am completely fine and unfazed because I am Walter the robot. And, Lope and Daniels are just like, man, whatever. I just got work to do. Can we get out of this? Right. And like, that's pretty much how the video ends. However, because this video is only available on the HD like home video releases, so the digital HD and the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Like this video is only on those. But did you know that they made like an edited and trimmed down version of it to release online?
I did not know that. How edited and trimmed down is it?
The video went from 9 minutes to about 35 seconds.
Holy shit, that's a huge difference. Damn.
Because like what they did is like they took like, all right, just imagine in your head how like when you're watching a trailer, it doesn't need to be like it could be any trailer, just a trailer.
Uh-huh.
Like how you watch the trailer and then you watch the movie and then you think back on the trailer and remember like how that trailer was edited and how like they showed scenes that were out of sequence from the movie in the trailer.
Yep.
But since they were removed from context and shown so quickly, you like didn't know and weren't aware. Like they basically took this 9-minute short and edited it down like they edit it the way you would edit a trailer.
Okay.
So it was just like 45 seconds of the hits.
Nice.
But like the thing of it is the video of this online is 3.5 or 4 minutes long because it's like 35 or 40 seconds of like the trailer edit version of the Phobos video.
Right.
And then it just goes from that directly into just the trailer for Alien Covenant, the movie.
Oh, that's fucked. Okay.
However, there is one little thing in the center, like after they show like the cut down version of Phobos, they have text on a screen that tells them that says that if you come to the Alien Covenant booth at San Diego Comic-Con that year, you can take your own colonist fear test that is available at the booth.
Holy shit, that's kind of cool, but Jesus Christ. Yeah. So they didn't want to show the whole thing online because they wanted to do this promotional thing at the Comic-Con, and then they put the full version on the Blu-ray digital release. Okay, that makes some kind of sense.
Yep.
This is cool. If you got the Blu-ray, if you got the digital release, check it out. I liked it. It's fun. It builds.
Yeah, I thought it was cool too. It's
enhances characters. Again, we seem to only be enhancing certain characters with all of these, but.
And those characters are Tennessee and Daniels.
Right. You get a little bit more Orem to hate. You get a little bit more of the other folks,
To be fair, we do get a little bit more about Rosenthal in this one. Like, we find out, like, she expresses once again how lonely she is. during the word association, the word she's given or the word we see her given is penetration, and her
Yeah,
response is men.
right.
And then later on the shot of all the phobias, they literally have phallophobia listed on there. And so I'm like, oh,
Okay.
maybe that's on, maybe she might have a phobia of men. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she was pretty cautious and
Yeah.
suspect of Lope in the novel until Lope, in a very roundabout
And
way, revealed himself to be gay. Instead of just being direct and putting her
that's
fucking
right.
fears
Instead of
to
just being
rest, dude.
direct about
Like,
it.
come on.
Uh, but that's actually something thinking about it now.
Yeah.
Um, there actually is another layer to this fear test. Like how even, we were talking about in the Covenant episode, how I think it was Jade that pointed it out, but like there's a whole lot of like stuff in this video that's like, stuff about like, worms burrowing into you and getting parasites and penetration and like, like you're having stuff like, a lot of focus on like parasites crawling
Yeah.
into your body.
Yeah, dude.
Like maybe that's an implication that Wayland Yutani like knew that xenomorphs were out there, and since their
Sure.
whole thing is penetrating people, they're like, we just want to make absolutely sure you're okay with that before you go out there to where they are.
But then they sent her anyway. Like,
But then they sent her anyway.
because I guess
who knows?
there was nobody else, and Lope really went to bat for her in the novel.
Yeah, who
so
knows?
yeah, I'm ready to move to the next one.
Yeah, so am I.
The next one is titled Advent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a transmission that David, now aboard the Covenant, is sending to Wayland Yutani, kind of filling him in about all the fucked up shit he did after the Prometheus mission and on Planet 4 and everything, right?
He describes it as an olive branch.
Yes.
Indicating that he's probably aware he totally fucked up the various missions by like, the Prometheus mission and then now ruining the Covenant mission.
Right.
He describes it as sending out an olive branch because the basic, the overhead view gist of it is that like all of the information that he's collected from doing his various experiments, he's like sending it to Wayland Yutani to be like, hey, see what you can do with this.
He's like, I know I fucked everything up, but check this out. Right. Yeah, he is. So he's like
trying to make it up to him, Yeah,
very clearly tipping them off. Like we discussed in Prometheus that he had, and the Wayland Corporation had some knowledge of the distress beacon from LV-426, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but now, like they know about that, and now they know about all this shit that happened on Planet 4. They know about the pathogen. They know about all of his experiments, the creation of the Praetomorph, all of that kind of shit. Like he has sent all this information back to them. Yeah. Scary thoughts. We get like, it's presented in like this weird, like computer, like futuristic computer interface message cut with footage of his laboratory that presumably is video footage that he has taken to send to them along with this, showing a lot of the experiments in greater detail. I don't need to, I mean, we're going to see that a lot of that too in the next short, right? So like, we don't need to describe all of it too much. You saw a lot of it in the movie, but it's like the bisected ovomorph with the face hugger inside, a lot of pictures of Shaw, a lot of like close-ups of Shaw and the drawings and things like that of her, and just we see a deacon head, like separated. So it's pretty cool that we got to see the deacon again. I love that little guy. Just a lot of that kind of stuff. He talks about unleashing the pathogen on Planet 4. He talks about Shaw like not being on his side about that, and then he had to like use her in his experiments in an attempt to, quote, make her more than human, which is an interesting, like, it shows the way that he is thinking about this stuff. Like he killed her and dissected her and then put her DNA into his experiments. So like the Praetomorph like has Shaw DNA in it somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But in his brain and his logic, he's like, I've turned her into something better than human. Like I'm doing a good thing, right? Like he does not.
Yeah, that's what he thinks. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so fucked and far gone that like he doesn't value human life. He thinks that he can make it better in like a very similar way of like the way Wayland thought about people and thought about life and thought about artificial life and everything, right? And the way the engineers thought about humanity and all of that kind of stuff. Like it's just a trail of people just thinking that kind of shit, like throughout these two movies, right? Like,
And he even like briefly touching on what you mentioned earlier about like how, you know, he says that he genocided the engineers explicitly as like a gift
yes,
to Shaw.
yeah,
And it's like which is extremely funny to me because it's like I don't understand why he would think that was a
no,
thing she would appreciate. And as it turns out, she didn't appreciate it. And furthermore, her not appreciating it and getting mad that he did it is ultimately the reason why he tortured her to death via scientific experimentation. He doesn't say it. Yeah, he doesn't say it, but he implies that he didn't decide to use her as part of his research until after she got mad at him for murdering all of the engineers.
right, yeah, it's fucking gross. So like, this made me think because we see the Covenant, the Juggernaut. Part of me, we see the Juggernaut just come in and he drops the vials and that's it. When the Covenant shows up, this ship has been crashed into this mountain, right, and kind of overgrown. Do you get the sense that like that was Shaw trying to steal the ship and escape, and she crashed it into the mountain, and then she was like, because her badge was in there, the picture of her and Holloway were in there. Do you think she was like holed up in that crashed Covenant Juggernaut, and David had to like trek out there and find her and take her back for these experiments? You know.
That is an interesting theory, and I mean, I hadn't thought about that. Like, you know, that thought never occurred to me, but like based on how we see her react like in the actual movie to stuff, that seems in character for her.
Seems like a Shaw move to try to like just take control and just get the fuck out of there. Like just Anyway, I was just thinking about that when I watched this. I was like, I bet that was her, because it never sat right with me that the ship was crashed. Because David obviously knew how to like expertly control that thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it must have been her trying to get away from him after he destroyed the city, you know?
And got anything else to say about this short?
I think I did. Give me 1 second here. Let me think.
All right, no problem. I also have one or two things to say about it.
You go ahead. Maybe I'll remember.
All right. Also, at the very end, he also mentions that he, you know, wanted whatever it was he wanted to do to Shaw. You know, the most description he ever gives for that is, you know, turn her into something more than human.
Right.
But he explicitly states what his plan is for Daniels, because like now that Shaw's dead, like Daniels is the only other person he really has to experiment on, and he explicitly says he is going to try to turn her into a queen.
Yes, his queen. Yeah, Shaw helped him find his wolf, right, which is the Praetomorph, and Daniels will help him make his queen. I don't know, man. I still don't like the idea that David is creating these things whole cloth, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, that's the problem is that even though, like, you know, later entries in the Alien franchise has kind of made that non-canon, when we're talking about Alien Covenant, we still need to treat it as official fact for the purposes of stuff, involving Covenant, which is a bit of a problem, but luckily we don't really have to talk about it for much longer. So
no, I mean, we could still like feel like he's taking credit for this work, or he's taken the old engineer experiments and he's altering them, which is why the Praetomorph is different from the Xenomorph, etc. It's why we've got blood bursters and this and that. I don't know, man. It's but like there is something interesting. I hate to admit it, that like the Xenomorph, if you broke down the DNA of the Xenomorph, you would find strands of like Shaw's DNA in it, right? And then if you break down the DNA of the Queen, you might find strands of Shaw's DNA and Daniel's DNA. Like it's an interesting idea. I see the impulse to want to make these things connected to humanity, like at some point, like, because again, the classic movie monster thing of like, who's the real monster, right?
Yeah.
But it just
Here,
still bugs me, still bugs
here's
me.
the thing. Here's the thing. That plot twist would have worked perfectly fine
Yeah.
and would not have been any problem at all whatsoever
Uh-huh.
if Prometheus and Covenant were like the first two movies in the series.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I know they are chronologically, but if like those were the first two movies in the series that got made,
if they're the first ones
and
made,
then the third one that they made after Covenant was the movie that we now know as Alien,
yeah.
like that would make it that would make a little, I mean, it would still have the same continuity problems, but like emotionally it would make more sense because by
Sure.
the time we saw where it eventually went, we already did know where it started. It wouldn't necessarily be more sensible, but it would make it easier to accept.
Yeah, it would make it easier to accept. It's the fact that they're trying
Yeah.
to shoehorn that in,
Yeah.
six movies and 30 years later or whatever. That's when it's like not working out right. Anyway,
exactly.
From there, let's talk about the last one, the epilogue, David's Lab, Last Signs of Life. A short made in 2019 to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of Alien Covenant. What a weird thing for them to do, because from what I understand, Covenant was not like a huge box office smash hit. It certainly didn't reinvigorate the franchise.
It definitely did not.
No, I mean, I love it, and I have to reckon with the fact that I love it because I wasn't expecting to.
Fair enough.
When we rewatched it for this podcast, I was like, oh fuck, this movie's great, and I got it. That's my issue, and I got to deal with that, everybody. But yeah, to make a new short 2 years after the release of a not very successful movie to celebrate its anniversary, I'm glad they did it. I kind of am. Like, it's pretty cool, I guess.
It's not bad, but I will say it's like 5 minutes of content in a 12-minute video.
Sure, yeah. It's a lot
it definitely very much could have been compressed and condensed, but there is some cool stuff here.
Yeah, there's a lot of it, but it also seems like a lot of reused footage of shots of David's laboratory.
It probably is, because, well, I suppose before we really get into it, basically, listeners, the premise of it is that this is some time after Covenant. Like, it was released 2 years after the release of the movie, but in this short, they never say how much time has passed between then and now.
There is a theory.
There is.
Yeah.
And we can get to that momentarily, but just like the gist of what happens is basically, they say it's some Weyland-Yutani security guys, but we only ever see one guy.
Yeah, it's a team,
and
a team of one.
And he comes in and he's got like the little GoPro mounted on his shoulder like everyone had in the movie. And he comes in to check out David's long abandoned, well, not necessarily long abandoned, but abandoned lab. And it's just several minutes of him just panning around and recording all of the stuff in David's lab, which is, also what he did in Advent as well.
Yeah.
And it may even be some of the same footage. And it's just slow pans around. We see him pick up a vial of pathogen. There's some anatomical drawings on the wall. There's various pieces of dead, mutated creatures around. And he finds a big egg in the corner of the room. And of course, we know it's an ovomorph, but they don't know what ovomorphs are, so he just sees a big egg.
Yeah.
And takes off his camera and sets it up on a tripod in front of the egg to scan it while he goes and investigates the rest of the room. And then the rest of the short is the camera just scanning this egg in various ways and getting an increasing amount of information about it.
Yeah.
And as the short goes on, it gets more information, processes more of it, starts to realize there's a living creature in it. And then near the end of it, he has to the guy has to physically go over there to physically handle and remove samples of material from it.
Yeah.
And when he does, the petals open up and a face hugger jumps out and grabs him, and
Yeah,
then the
dude.
short ends. And that's how it ends.
That's the end. So do you think that this could technically be the earliest specimen that Wayland Yutani has maybe encountered or attempted to collect of the xenomorph?
I'm going through the events of the other two movies, and yeah, I think this is the first time that Wayland Yutani has like been there to be able to collect a xenomorph sample, and
Yeah.
like there were still people left alive, because even though we only ever see this one guy, presumably there were others that came with him, you know.
Yeah, exploring other parts of the city or the building or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so the theory is that this takes place in like the year 2117, because apparently there's a date stamp on some of the camera stuff that ends in 17, and people are like, well, oh shit, that was the year they filmed some of the stuff, 2017 when Covenant came out, but the movie takes place in 2104. So the theory is, well, maybe this just takes place in 2117, 13 years after Alien Covenant. That seems like a little bit of a stretch. I mean, what's the shelf life on an ovomorph egg, right? Or like,
Well,
could it be like naturally occurring? I don't know.
Well, I mean, based on the events of the first movie, potentially thousands of years. So
Potentially, but those eggs were also like under a force field, right?
that's true.
They could have been in
That's
some
true.
kind of suspended animation, a la the other times we see that in the franchise.
But like, it's interesting though to like try and figure out when this takes place, because
Yeah.
like, why did Wayland Yutani come to Planet 4? Like, how do they know how do they know it existed? Like, what decided to make them come? Like, was it the information that David
I think
sent
so.
in the Advent short? Like, is that the reason they're going there?
I think that's the implication, that David sent his research data and all of that footage and everything to Wayland Yutani, and they are now responding to it, right? Like, maybe they're partially investigating what happened with the Covenant mission at the same time, but I think the fact that they are there directly in David's lab with this gear, it is because they are following like a trail that David left for them. And maybe that was like David's final trick. Like, I'm going to prank some Wayland Yutani fuckers to get in here with like my last egg, you know?
And
but
thinking about it now, like, I don't remember, is Covenant the one where they said it was going to take them 39 years to get there, or was that Prometheus?
to get to Planet 4?
To get to wherever it was they were going, because I don't remember which movie it was in.
So, or I don't think that was as long for anything.
Hmm.
I don't think
Because
it was
like what
take
I'm wondering
40 years to get to Origai 6.
because like what I'm wondering is if they believe this takes place like 13 or 14 years after the events of Covenant, how would they
Yeah.
have gotten there that fast? You know?
Right. Well, I got this. I got the sense that it's only a few years flight away.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, I really don't know. And time dilation and
Yeah, that's true. You got me there.
hypersleep and all of that.
Good point.
Who really knows? But yeah, that's kind of it. I like the idea. I'm wondering if there's going to be anything else, like, because this was very purposely made, and this was made just, well, I guess 3 years ago at this point, but very recently after Covenant, that they're like, we're going to have someone go land on David's planet and see David's experiments and get face hugged, right?
Yeah.
So I am
Yeah.
interested to see if this is going to be like an important specimen in the FX TV series or in the Hulu movie or in the Marvel comics, if this is going to be like the specimen that kicks everything off. I think that Marvel Comics has already shown us there's a different first specimen, right?
Well, see, that was also what I thought, but when I went back and reread it, I realized that first specimen, or alpha as he's referred to in the comic,
Yeah.
the alpha is not described as the first specimen Wayland Yutani ever caught. The alpha is described as the first specimen that they ever had on that station that the comic takes place on.
Gotcha. So this could be the actual beginning of Wayland Yutani getting hold of a xenomorph, or almost getting hold of. Like this is the first time. So they're like, oh shit, maybe it gets botched, and they're like, shit, we need others. And that's why they send people to LV-426 that check out that stress beacon. Maybe there's some over there, you know. Maybe this is the inciting incident that really kicks off Weyland-Yutani's obsession with the xenomorph.
I mean, the timeline fits.
It would be cool to see something tie back to this, you know, just a mention in something of like, yeah, we found this lab on planet 4, you know, like, like it'd be a cool way to keep the David Prometheus Covenant stuff in continuity without making it the focus, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see where they go with it. I just want to keep an eye on that as we dig into newer stuff as the show goes on.
I do have a couple other smaller things that I'd like to mention about this short. Do you have anything else?
I think I'm good on this one.
All right. After the dude finds the ovomorph and takes off his camera to like set it up in front of the egg, I specifically, explicitly pointed out in my notes that he did not take off his helmet,
Finally.
which means he is smarter than the crews of both the Prometheus and the Covenant put together.
They learned their fucking lesson, finally.
Let's see. At one point, when the camera like starts scanning the egg to find out more info about it, after it's done like scanning its surface, it shines this green light over the egg so it can like make like a 3D model like computer representation of it. And like the light is horizontal and it's scanning up and down over the egg, and the reason that's important is because the light is green, and so there's a certain point where when it's scanning over the egg, it has the same shape as the image of the egg on the poster of the first Alien movie.
Okay, that's cool. That's fun.
Like the light bends around it in such a way that makes that same green shape that's on the poster.
Yeah, that egg that was on a brownie tray.
That's right.
Yeah.
Despite being smart enough to not take his helmet off, the dude is also a huge dumbass in like another specific sense, where the AI built into the camera literally twice out loud says it detected movement inside the specimen, and he just fully ignores it and uses this little remote control to like override the pause that the AI put on to notate that. He's like, don't care, and just clicks it over and makes it go back to work.
Better stick my head in this thing.
And at one point, like after it, like, you know, does the external scan and does like the 3D model rendering of it, it starts to do an internal scan, and it never really like describes how that's done, but like the visualization in the short of how like the visualization they used to show it doing the internal scan was really cool. Like normally in a shot like this, it would be like you see the thing and then the camera like plunges inside of it like a needle real quick, and then you're inside of it. But like this, what it did is it had like a microscopic size camera lens, and then it was panning slowly sideways through all of the like external layers of the ovomorph, and just like seeing all the different layers and all the little different cell structures and stuff. I just thought that was like a clever way to visualize this thing puncturing through with its scans. And then of course when it gets inside, you see a creature writhing around alive and moving inside of a sack, and you're like, I wonder what that is. Let's see. When he has to physically walk over to the ovomorph, because like it's still closed, he like what happens is it's still closed, and he walks up to it, scrapes off a couple of samples, and then turns around and squats down in front of the camera and puts it down, blocking off your view of the ovomorph. And then he turns around to like go get some more, and then the petals are just open, and he's like, and then looks in it, and then you don't actually see the facehugger come out or attach onto him, because he's standing in front of it, so his body blocks it, and his head is off screen, so when it grabs him, he just falls over off screen, so you never actually see the facehugger.
That's just clever editing. That's pretty cool.
Well, True, but like what I don't want to say what I liked about it, but what the reason I'm bringing this up
Yeah.
is because when he first walks towards it, like when the petals are still closed, he starts taking steps towards the ovomorph,
Yeah.
and then this song starts playing on the soundtrack of like this swelling vocal line of this woman doing like this operatic vocal line or whatever, and my brain registered that song as like diegetic music inside the scene, and my brain suddenly was like, where the fuck is that music coming from? And then like 5 or 6 seconds later I was like, oh, that's just part of the soundtrack, it's not actually in the actual scene. Okay, got it.
David's got like a Sonos system set up in his little cave, and it's just streaming from his iPhone.
But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's like the short's like 11 and a half minutes long or something like that.
Yeah.
And it could have been like, I don't know, 5 or maybe even 6 minutes, because there was several minutes of just a lot of slow pans over stuff and a lot of just scenes of holding on something while you see a little bit of a movement occasionally in stuff. And it's like there's just a lot of like long, weird panning shots that like could have just been removed. This short does not need to be almost 12 minutes long.
No, but it is cool. Like, it is still a cool one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's 12 minutes. It's a 12-minute short that has like 5 or 6 minutes of material actually in it, and it was stretched out. Like, if this thing was edited down to remove all the weird extraneous long shot stuff, like, it's already cool as it is, but I would have really liked it a lot, because there is some cool stuff in here. It's just surrounded by a lot of scenes that just kind of don't go anywhere and take forever to get through.
Right. They could have trimmed 2 or 3 minutes off of this thing for sure.
Although, you know what it did remind me of, though?
What's that?
It reminded me of the scene in Covenant we keep on fucking bringing up. The scene in the med bay when Ledward and Corinne get killed.
The good scene.
It reminds me of that, because like we see the camera shot of it scanning this ovomorph and then reading off like the stuff that it's made of, you know, detecting movement inside of it. And then while this is happening, it keeps cutting to the security guy who's just like going through pictures and scoping out more like pieces of hybridized mutant creatures and all that. And like it keeps cutting back and forth between the two of them in a way that felt similar to me to how the medbay scene was edited, where it would cut between Ferris and what's happening with them, and then Tennessee and them hearing what's happening on the ground, how it kept cutting between those two scenes. This reminded me of that, but this wasn't nearly as tense as the medbay scene was.
That fucking medbay scene is flawless filmmaking.
It's great, man. It is so good.
Yeah, I still like it sold me on the whole fucking movie, right? Like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's my favorite scene in the movie, and I know we were talking about this off air, but I don't know if we ever actually said it on the Covenant episode or not.
Yeah.
But like that medbay section of the movie is my favorite part of the movie. But then after David shows up and they go to the temple, like everything from that point on, like the entire section of the movie that they're in the temple, I honestly just don't like. Like, I don't like that part of the movie. It's just boring. Very little actually happens.
Yeah.
Like, you know, everything up until then I like. And then when they're escaping and the protomorph comes after them and they have the fight on like the big crane arm lifter, like that part is cool. Yeah. But like that entire time where they're in the temple,
just like 20 minutes.
Just fucking... Yeah, it's just so boring and slow to me, and like nothing happens, and it's like a whole bunch of characters are just walking from room to room, and all the rooms look identical, and they're just repeating the same lines over and over again, and it drags, and nothing happens, and it takes forever, and that entire part of the movie I just don't like, but like the rest of the movie is great.
Yeah, man. There's just that 20-minute section really does grind things to a halt, but then the movie gets going again and it's fun again. So
for sure.
I totally get it. That part it's rough. It's a rough part to swallow for sure.
And like, I honestly felt kind of bad saying that on the episode, which is why I'm not sure if I even did. Well, the reason I felt bad about it is because Jade was like, it's my favorite section of the movie because it has all the parts where David and Walter are interacting with each other. And I was like, that was the part of the movie I didn't like, so I'm just not going to say anything because she's the guest, so I'll just let her have her moment.
Well, let me be clear. Like I love those David Walter parts. Absolutely. It's the human parts. It's the Daniels and Orem and Rosenthal and Lope and the other guy with Lope. It's those parts that are just like and Cole. It's like what the fuck? Like the Orem stuff sucks. The but the Walter it should have only been like they should have just had the rest of the crew like go to sleep. And then Rosenthal gets up to like go to the bathroom and gets killed, right? So that we could have just had just the Walter David parts in that. It would have trimmed about 8 minutes off the movie, right? Which also would have helped, like I think it would have been a perfect movie at that point. No one would have anything to complain about Alien Covenant if they had done that. But they just gave us a little too much time with the red shirts and the people we don't care about in that temple scene.
I'll agree to that.
Yeah. Anyway,
I don't think I have anything else. I think that's pretty much all I had to say.
All right. Well, same here. So I think overall, right, the Last Supper, which we talked about on a previous episode, Phobos,
Advent,
and David's Lab are all worth watching. The crew messages are fine. The rest of it, I don't think it's all kind of skippable,
Yeah, I will say The Crossing is also worth watching just to see some more like newly filmed Shaw material. Just to see her around for a little bit more is always fun.
Yes, The Crossing is worth checking out. The Crossing should have just been in the movie.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, we got Last Supper, The Crossing, Phobos, Advent, and David's Lab. So basically, like, considering that those last three are way, way longer than all of the rest of them, that's, I mean, by like number of shorts, that's like just over a third of the list, but by runtime, it's probably about half the list.
I think it's worth watching. If you like Covenant, if you want a little bit more, check those out. Throw in the Walter, the Meet Walter thing if you want to see how androids get put together. Overall, I'd say that for the most part, these shorts are better and add more than the Prometheus shorts did, right?
The ones that are worse are way worse, but the ones that are better are way better.
Yeah.
So
which is kind of
the highs are higher, but the lows are lower. So take your pick,
That's kind of a statement on the movie Alien Covenant itself, especially when compared to Prometheus, right? Like
that's true.
The highs are way higher, but there are a couple lows that are worse than anything you saw in Prometheus, and it is mostly,
I'll agree to that.
And most of those parts involve Orem.
Yep.
No shade to Billy Crudup. I love that guy. He's a good actor.
Oh yeah, I mean he does a great job.
It's all the character.
Yeah, he does a great job playing the character. The character just sucks,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, I think I'm ready to get out of here. Flight Assistant Kenny.
I think I am as well. I forgot what your title is, Neal.
Audi Lunar Lander sales rep.
Oh yeah. That's right. Audi Lunar Quattro sales rep. That's right. I forgot.
Where can people find you online if they want to?
I am on Twitter. My handle is at CYHOBBEZ. I pretty much the last few months have just been tweeting about the stuff I've been watching, except for when I send out a tweet that is about the stuff I've been playing. So I only use Twitter like when I remember to, like once every few days. I should probably tweet more, but come by and follow me. You'll at the very least know what movie I've been watching.
And where can people find our show online?
Our Twitter handle is at
Crew Expenda Pod.
Yes.
Our Instagram handle is at Crew Expendable Pod, and our website is crewexpendable.net.
That's right. Go subscribe in your podcast app, rate us and review us. Give us 5-star reviews and positive ratings on all the platforms. It really helps the show out, and spread the word. Tell your friends about us. You can find me on Twitter at Final Neal and Instagram at Final Neal Retro. And if you want to check out my other podcast, all about Mortal Kombat movies, TV shows, comic books, etc., mkpodquest.com for that. I don't know what we're doing next, Kenny. We'll figure it out off the air. I think for now, we should just get out of here. So, until next time, stay frosty.